Hey everybody, welcome to CoshunCast. Craig Coshun, James Stewart. Great to have you aboard here for our second episode, and things are rolling along pretty well here. I think, James, we could do maybe one of these a day, and with all the breaking news across the state of Wisconsin, we could really keep up. But first of all, how you doing?
Good. The only problem with doing one a day is I feel like the news is like constantly changing every single day, so we'd be wrong a lot. But but I'm doing good.
Well, we're putting this together on Thursday. What is it, November 4th? And
Yep.
we were contemplating doing it on the 2nd or on the 3rd. And had we done that sooner, we wouldn't get to talk about number 12 with the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers. And I'm saying this with a smile on my face because I probably more than anything get a kick out of how this always becomes severe drama and almost like criminal accusations, no matter what this guy does. And obviously he's on the COVID protocol. He had tested positive, so he's going to miss the Chiefs game, and that's hurtful to millions of fans.
Well, I mean, the good thing is obviously the Chiefs are struggling, but yeah, I mean, we dealt with it last week with Adams, and after our show dealt with it with Lazard, and I think we're just gonna have to get used to COVID in sports. I mean, it hit us with Brewers, it hit us with Bucks, and we're not alone in this. I think this one stings a little bit more because it feels like we were lied to, but ultimately he's going to miss one game and hopefully everything works out and he'll be back.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that I have the greatest issue with is I'm not a big finger pointer, and I know it's a lot of people's jobs to find out what the truth is, and there's a lot of inside sourcing, and I think that we all found out during the first portion of this Aaron Rodgers saga, earlier this year, that he had reportedly said he didn't want to come back to the Packers at all. He was done and stuff. And obviously he may have gone through what he went through, but none of that came to fruition as it turns out either. I mean, I'm not sure if the guy lied to us for sure or not. Everyone's got a version of how to try to protect themselves or not protect themselves during, some pretty tough call decision times here right now. But, I know the team faces, potential reprimands from the NFL, depending upon if some of their protocols inside their building were violated as well. But I'm not sure that all means a whole lot at this point. I mean, you want your player to be on the field. You want your player to be on the court. You want your player to be on the diamond. And we've seen this, like you just said, with the Brewers, the Bucks, and the Packers. And we're going through it at the same time with the Packers and the Bucks. I mean, both those teams are missing star players right now, and it's covering a series of games.
Yeah, and it's really easy, I think, to find the outrage if you're looking for it. I mean, it's kind of everywhere, but you do got to remember these guys are people and they have decisions to make. And unfortunately, it affects kind of the team and how that all plays out. But ultimately, like I said, he's going to miss one game, and I feel like I'm trying to keep that mindset because I'm tired of chasing adults down, asking them to get vaccinated and stuff. You know what I mean? At some point, it's like, if you got to make the decision for yourself, obviously, and I can't keep chasing you down and getting outraged every time someone gets COVID or every time it comes out someone is or isn't vaccinated. The unfortunate part, obviously, for the fans is that we're missing with, Aaron Rodgers, and with the Bucks, Chris Middleton. It's just, I guess they're at two different points too. With the Bucks being at the beginning of their season, it kind of is like, it's fine. Like, they'll be able to make up this ground. But for the Packers, they could potentially lose to Kansas City, and then I believe they have Seattle next.
Yeah.
So you'd have Aaron coming back from whatever effects from COVID and no practice. potentially with Russell Wilson being back. But ultimately, even if they were to lose those 2 games, hypothetically, they'd still be 7-3. You're still looking good. You know what I mean? So I think the sky is not necessarily falling, and the outrage will kind of fade away. The outrage will fade away as it does with everything else, you know?
Well,
it is the hot story right now, though.
It is. I mean, let's face it. It won hot last week with Adams. They were like, oh, okay. But, you know, there have been things that have been exposed, I guess, with sources. So I guess, you know, you roll through it all. But, you know, I was thinking about this, how the Bucs are dealing with COVID, you know, with Middleton, and how the Packers have been dealing with it the last couple of weeks from their, you know, some of their coaching staff to their other key players, as we talked about. You remember back in late July, early August, about almost a 2-week period, the Brewers missed at least 9 players that were placed on COVID, and they were Christian Yelich, Josh Hader, Adrian Hauser, bunch of pitchers, and you really can't do anything except deal with it.
Right.
As much as you want to finger point, as much as you want to say, well, these guys should have done this or these guys should have done that. We're all living this way. They're not living any different than we're living right now. I mean, the state of Wisconsin is 55% vaccinated. I think most pro teams are in the 80 to 90%.
Right.
So what's that tell you? It could tell you that they're way more committed to the team than we are to our own state and our own neighbors. I mean, who knows?
Well, I think it says too that even though, like I said, there's a lot of outrage around it, the leagues are doing a pretty good job at getting their players vaccinated. I mean, the NBA is 95%. So there's obviously still going to be breakthrough cases and guys that get COVID, but we do have to remember that, as you said, if Wisconsin's only 55% vaccinated and, you know, the rest of the country's, you know, the same, the leagues are they're pretty high. So it's just, this is the world we live in, I think, for a little bit.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So I don't know. I'm just not going to be one that's going to be so wrapped up in there's just too much of a blame game going on right now. So, you know, we're just going to have to see, you know, what Rodgers says when he comes back. We don't know if he's even sick, for that matter. Right. I mean, being testing positive doesn't sometimes mean a hill of beans. So, you know, hopefully everybody who has to go through this from this point forward, it's not severe, but we know it can be. But, you know, we'll just have to see what he says about everything when he comes back. So I think that's like where I want to stop with the Rodgers.
And, I mean, there's only so much you can say.
No, I mean,
you know what I mean?
Exactly. So, but that opens the door for Jordan Love, James. So he's going to get his first start. I mean, this is going to be the first time in his NFL career that all eyes are on him. So he's getting the start, and you know, somehow he's got to do his best to be ready. And I think the only silver lining I'll take out of this is at least he's been with the team now for a couple of seasons, and he did run the team for a pretty good period of time during their mini camps, that type of thing. So you hope that helps, and you also hope that because this happened on Wednesday, their first day of preparation for their next opponent, that he'll be in good shape rather than this happening on Saturday night, you know, the game.
And I'm not saying this is going to happen, but it is kind of funny that he's going to start against Kansas City, because if you remember Patrick Mahomes' kind of rookie year, he had that one start on the road, and that was enough for the Chiefs to say, all right, we're moving on to Patrick Mahomes. So that's obviously not going to happen with Jordan Love, but it is just kind of interesting that's how that played out. But he is going to have, you know, he's going to have Aaron Jones. He's going to have Dylan. He's going to have, I believe Adams is back, right?
I think he is. Yeah.
So he should have the full complement of players outside of Tunyon, who got hurt last week. But we'll see what happens. I mean, he's going to get a look. It's not much more you can ask for, especially with all the stuff that went on this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a key time for him, obviously, and I think it's funny because when Adams was out last week, we were talking about he had missed 6 previous games and the team had won all those, and everyone as soon as he went out was saying they lost their best player. There's no way they're going to win in Arizona, and you and I discussed that. They've never lost when Adams has been out, and their best player Adams. It was Rodgers, and look what he did in that game. I just think like that game was pretty entertaining to watch because I think if you follow this team closely enough, and I was really happy that Rodgers said this after the game, how much credit he gave to his head coach Matt LaFleur about having the right game plan, having the right scheme, having the right adjustments. I mean, when you're missing your stars, you have to make an adjustment. You just can't say, they say next man up, but it's not that way. Right. A lot goes into it. And I thought watching that game last week, you gained an appreciation for what LaFleur really means to this team now, and how Rodgers helped run things. And you'd hope in a different way this time around, it's going to be hopefully something similar.
Yeah, maybe it'll be like a couple years ago, the Matt Flynn game. Just come out and throw a couple touchdowns and get himself a contract and solve that whole problem. just solve everything.
Well, he solved the money problem anyway.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
He didn't play so well after that.
No.
But when you're like in Jordan Love's situation, you don't want to do too much, but at the same time, you got to kind of let it hang out a little bit, don't you? Yeah. Like it almost seems like in sports, you can't say I'm not going to take any risks.
No,
but I think that's when you set yourself up for disaster. I mean, this is sports, man. It's competition. You have to go for it a lot more than you got to take a step back and say, we'll just not take any risks here and that type of thing. So that's kind of how I'm looking at his situation.
Yeah, and I hope he goes out and wings it. I hope he goes to win the game, not to manage the game. But, ultimately LaFleur will make those decisions. But, you would hope that he gets a couple moments where he can kind of show off his big arm and make some moves with his legs and, see what happens.
Yep, for sure. Well, it'll be interesting, Packers Chiefs, and we'll talk about it next week on the show as well and see how that unfolds and if we hear from Aaron Rodgers before that or not. So the Aaron Rodgers thing for the following week is going to be a tight window because I don't think he can technically be cleared until the 13th, which is the day before their game in Seattle. Is that in Seattle or Green Bay? I don't even know. Oh, no, it's in Seattle, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's in Seattle.
Anyway, it's a thin line, that's for sure.
Yeah, it'll be a quick turnaround. That's
yeah. So let's talk. Let's move on now and talk about the Bucks. They ran into a rough patch. They came home after having a pretty successful road trip. They were okay out there, and then they got the COVID news with Middleton, and they ended up losing all 3 games at home, which shocked me, to be quite honest with you. But they had, Drew's been out, Lopez has been out, Middleton won out, I think, on the last game of that homestand. And, they're trying to get Bobby Portis in the mix. They're trying to get Hood in the mix. They're trying to get Ojale in the mix. There's a lot going on with that team right now. They responded well when they went on the road. They clobbered Detroit. Detroit's terrible. That was the win they had to have.
Yeah.
But Giannis is the one. I mean, he's like I said this on our show last week. Out of the starting lineup, he's the last man standing right now, which is almost a shocker, to be honest with you, because I think
Right.
going into the season, he was the one we were most concerned about with his knee, whether or not he really is 100%.
Right. And I think too, like you said, he's kind of, this feels like he's relearning what he really had around him. Not that he didn't know, because he talks about it all the time, but I think maybe the fans are even kind of saying this is given a little bit more respect for the guys that are missing, because these are all-stars that are missing. Each Chris, Drew, Brooke have all been all-stars before. That it's hard to imagine taking any team, and if you include Dante, taking 4 of their 5 starters out and expecting them to win. Like, where could that happen? Like, this isn't as bad as early Giannis, when they're a 15-win team, but they've got a lot of new pieces too. The guys that are there are a lot of the new pieces. So you've got Rodney Hood, Semi Ojeleye, Robinson, all these guys trying to mix in around. Jordan Nora's got a bigger role, Grayson Allen. All these guys are trying to mix around Giannis, and with Giannis at the 5 too, which is, not his normal position for the last couple of years. I'm looking at this like, what do you really expect other than you want to see effort? You hope to get a couple wins until the guys get back. Like you said, they went into Detroit, a game that you kind of have to win after losing 3 straight, which I can't remember the last time. I guess the playoffs against Toronto was probably like the last time they lost 3 straight.
They actually, that was a good question. I thought about that after the 3rd loss in a row at home, and I'm like, there's no way I can't remember the last time they did that.
Yeah,
they lost 5 in a row at home last season at the end of the regular
season.
Oh, really? Okay.
All right. Well,
boy, that's dramatic.
Never mind.
Man, they're not as bad as I thought. But
yeah, I do not remember that.
I don't either. It was I think it was a stretch from late March into early April.
Okay.
Of course, last season was, the schedule was stretched further into the later into the spring and stuff. So I don't remember what that rough patch was, but there obviously was a rough patch. But if I'm not mistaken, I think Giannis sat for a stretch of time, and it had to have been over that stretch. Maybe he didn't play for like, a week to 10 days, 11 days, something like that. But yeah, so that did happen, believe it or not. But it's, if you think about it, though, it's the same scenario. How does a team that talented, lose? And we're nitpicking on a little losing streak like that at home.
Right.
But it just goes to show how good they are. And, that Brooklyn game to open up the season was so eye-popping.
Yeah.
Played so well. Look, they had everybody for the most part. They had their starting in there and stuff, and
outside of Bobby, and I mean, but it felt like it's like, I mean, we've said it. It felt like they picked up where they left off, and it was like, well, we're just going to roll into this season and do it again. Then injury. It's just it's there's no. I mean, I don't think you need to panic, but you just got to wait for these guys to get back. I mean, it's early. We're 7-8 games in. Like,
and they started last year. Their first 6 games, they were 3-3, and so their first 8, they're 4-4. So it's it'll pick up for sure. It'll pick up. It's going to take a while, though. I still say it's going to be January before we see this team healthy and united at the earliest, and playing the style of basketball that they hope to end with in the regular season in early April, and then kick it into the playoffs. So
and look, it's a perfect time for Jordan Nora to get extra minutes and extra shots, Grayson Allen to get extra minutes, extra shots. When Chris, Drew, and Bobby's fully healthy, like, a lot of these minutes are going to go away. So it's a perfect time for these guys to get real live action in games. And if you need them at a later point, that base is built. or one of these guys plays themselves into the rotation.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of good that could come from this, especially being this early in the season. Like you said, we're only 8 games in, and they're 500. So there really is a lot of positive that can come from it. Hopefully, everyone comes back healthy, and roles go back to normal. But a good game from Jordan Nora, a hot streak from Grayson Allen, and the team learns that way.
I agree with you, and I also think that part of what some of these guys are going through right now too is, and we saw this during the 3-game losing streak at home. There were a lot of open looks, and just hitting the shot became the biggest challenge for this team. And you're going to go through dry periods where you collectively you're not hitting shots. I think the teams that they were playing were very beatable. But I also think that, we've seen some teams kind of start to grow up a little bit. I think the Timberwolves are pretty talented. The Bucks haven't played the Bulls yet. They're going to play the Knicks on Friday night for the first time. I mean, there's some up and coming teams that, you could pencil in wins a year ago that are going to change. And there are going to be some teams where, maybe you split with, but maybe you sweep that season series. Who knows? But that's kind of still yet to come. And these guys are still feeling their way through some things. I mean, there's no way that Jordan Nwora is going to be scoring at the level he was right out of the gates. I mean, he hasn't done that yet. He's young and he needs to go through some growing pains. Everybody plateaus. And then if they're good enough, they take the next step up, and then they plateau again, and then they take the next step up. But that's only if they're really good players. So now's the time we start finding out how good some of these guys really are.
Right. Yeah. And I feel the same way about Grayson. I mean, he's been in kind of double figures every game, but he's missed a lot of open shots. And it feels like you start to wonder like what the mindset of a guy is, because if he's only going to get 3 shots and he misses the 3 open shots, now what? But if he's going to get 5, 6, 7 shots, not going to worry about those 3 shots. And we've seen that in him. His mindset hasn't changed at all. But we'll see kind of when more guys are added to the mix and a couple of those shots get taken away and moved to Drew or Chris or whatever. And those, it's going to be another learning process to see what we've seen that with Pat specifically. Like he's last year figured out how to take advantage of those 4 shots, 5 shots that he was going to get, So it's all going to be a learning experience in a new team, just like every other team. The difference is a lot of these, like the Heat or the Bulls, they have kind of their new toys and they're all gelling and going, and we're kind of our core is on the sideline right now. So there's not much you can do about it.
No, but it is interesting because when you look at that, I think you start clamoring a little bit and saying, when is Brook Lopez coming back?
Right.
What is he going through right now? Because he has only played game 1 of the season. How much does this team really miss him right now? How much does Giannis miss him right now in that interior? I mean, you mentioned that he's playing the 5 a little bit more, and James, maybe that's not his comfort zone.
Right. And I mean, we saw the Detroit game. He had the 4 blocks or 5 blocks, whatever it was. But yeah, Giannis is more of a roaming defender. And he's come out, and I guess that's kind of what I've taken from it, is that he's come out multiple times and kind of publicly pleaded for Brook to come back. So, that kind of tells me we know that Giannis jokes a lot, but there's a little bit of truth in every joke. Giannis does not want to play the 5. He wants to deal with the centers when he wants to deal with them, not nonstop. You know what I mean? It's a whole different defensive set for him to stand down there and be the anchor, as opposed to him being able to kind of float. And because we haven't seen any of those like chase down blocks, we haven't seen any of those coming from the backside blocks. It's all been, at least in the Detroit game, was all kind of at the rim, which he can do, but obviously with Brook on the floor, that makes it a lot easier. And with rebounding too, which I think Brook is probably numbers-wise doesn't show that he's a great rebounder, but I think he's one of the most underrated team rebounders in the game because he just takes up so much space.
I was just going to say,
it allows guards specifically to fly in and get boards.
Yeah. No, I mean, he is not if he gets a double-double, you're going, that's a pretty damn good
He
game.
dominated. Yeah.
But it is the best point about that is it's space eating, space filling. Yeah. You can prevent somebody else from getting a rebound that will hurt you and set your teammate up for getting a rebound that'll help you. And that's part of what his game is. But it is interesting because you had on our agenda to talk about Giannis and what he sees on the court. He kind of addressed this the other day, without some of his key players. Like, kind of walk us through that a little bit, because I think it's something worth talking about, how his game changes a little bit. His vision changes a little bit when I'll go back to it kind of as a last man standing.
Yeah, he made the comment, I think it was after the last game, just about someone asked what he was kind of seeing on the floor, and he said it was different because he feels like he's got four guys kind of just looking at him sometimes, waiting for him to make a play. And then he follows up with, sometimes it feels like I have 9 guys looking at me, because it's like, he's the MVP out there and he's being asked to kind of do it all. So he's got his 4 guys looking at him. He's got the other 5 guys looking at him, and he's just kind of relearning what it's like to be not necessarily alone out there, because there are NBA players out there, but obviously he's the 2-time MVP and all eyes are on him. And it's a completely different game when he's got Chris and Drew and even Brook out there to kind of take some of that attention away. And he is passing well, but when the guys aren't hitting shots, it's easy to think, okay, then I got to do it myself, and I don't think that's the way that he wants to play. And obviously it hasn't been incredibly effective. Can't win it if you put up 40 and the other team, 40 is not enough, obviously. You know what I mean? Like, the other guys have to score.
Yeah. Well, and I also think that we've seen, and naturally so, but I think this is something that they want to avoid. Yeah. It's him becoming, frustrated when those guys are missing shots. When he's missing his own Arsenal teammates, mm-hmm. and the other guys are missing some shots, he's getting them the ball. He's still being the facilitator. So all of a sudden, we saw in that last game at home where they lost last week on Sunday.
Yeah.
He took 11 threes.
Yeah.
And I didn't really realize I
didn't either. Yeah.
And then I'm looking at the box score and I'm like, this can't happen again. Right. But him taking 11 threes right now, given the circumstances, is different than, well, I'll just look over what LeBron James is doing. LeBron James, when he's playing, is shooting a lot more threes than he ever has in his career, which means it can only tell you he doesn't want that contact, right. Especially this time of year right now. But it's still 2 superstars saying, this is what I'm going to do for my team regardless. Right. And they're still willing to put up the threes. Is that a good thing? I'm not so sure.
I mean, you look at the Minnesota game, he had 40 in that game, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So he's banging up against Cat the whole game. You know what I mean? That's a hard 40. And to lose it, you come back the next game and shoot 11 threes kind of makes sense to me. Because it's just like how much you gotta. I'm sure he's weighing that in his mind. How much do I want to kind of bang down here? And a 3 is a kind of a playoff for me. If I make it, great. If not, our motto is let it fly. So I'm probably not going to get in trouble.
Exactly. Well, he hit 3 of them, and in all honesty, no one's shooting like really, I think the best 3-point shooting night that I've seen is 5 of 10 from Grayson Allen.
Yeah.
And the Bucks didn't even win that game. So,
and they shot well in Detroit, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But like we said, that's one they wear. I mean, they just, they're gonna wear Detroit out, home or road right now. So, and so now that I think one of the big questions is when you're going to get Middleton back, and how long is that going to go on, and how's that going to affect the team, and are you going to get Drew Holiday back anytime soon? Are you going to get Lopez back anytime soon? So all these things are going to be unanswered right now. But I think it's just part of the flow where this team is going. But they did make news, James. The Bucks did this week when they unveiled their. I always call these alternate jerseys because they don't wear them all the time, but they're earned jerseys or they're city jerseys, whatever. And the ones they picked out, I love way better than last year's blue look, and we're taking a look at it now. It's a combination of all of their eras of Bucks history, and they've taken little chunks of things. First of all, I've always kind of liked the color piping on the side of the jersey, the way it's kind of out. That's from the 80s when Marcus was playing and Junior Bridgman and stuff like that. But they've incorporated some purple on the pants in that, a little bit on the jersey as well. Purple from the late 90s, early 2000s.
It looks like the only color that they missed was the Christmas red.
Yeah, in all honesty, I was a little surprised by that.
Yeah, especially with the whole kind of that's where the Bucks and 6 was born. But yeah, I like them. I like they're simple, a good enough homage to kind of the history of all the teams, all the colors. I feel like whenever we do these, or whenever they do these city jerseys, they usually try to come out with something big, like flashy. But I think this is simple and to the point. It doesn't look like it doesn't fit with the rest of their jersey selection. It's really on brand. I like them. I think they're pretty cool.
I think out of all the alternates they've had here since the new ownership took over, my favorite was one that looks similar to this when they did incorporate some of the red and they had the stripes. And I think they had was it vertical instead of horizontal? I can't remember. And then they had the number. Those are the ones that I like the best. They were close to this, but I like these. I mean, it's all about the uniform now. And you can actually website. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but you could find it. The NBA actually has every matchup in the league. They already have the uniforms set for every single all year. And I discovered this a couple of weeks ago, and I went in, popped in, and looked at the Bucks schedule and stuff, and they still had TBA because it was these jerseys that they hadn't unveiled yet. But every game has the actual jersey of each team, whatever they're going to wear that night, home or road, whatever it is. And it's actually kind of cool. If you're into uniforms and numbers and, retros and all that kind of stuff, it's and a lot of people are, I for sure out of it. And so they actually do have a website for that.
I mean, personally, I like I feel like nostalgically, I like the purple with the big buck on it. Like, so I'm always a little happy when they incorporate a little bit of the purple, just because it was out there. But yeah, I like it. I like the jerseys. I mean, they're simple enough.
I was never a big fan of that when they wore it, but I think when you're completely dismissed of that for such a long period of time, and then you see it come back, or you see, some people, that get the retro jerseys wearing it You're thinking, oh, that's actually pretty cool. And you know what? It's for the fans.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys who are wearing this stuff aren't looking at each other in the mirror all day. They're playing the game, and doesn't matter what they're wearing. They're playing the game. They're playing to win. It's for fans. It's it's the eye candy. It's the opportunity to wear something like that to a couple of games and have fun with it, man. The merchandising and the uniforms for Milwaukee over the last few years is crazy good.
Yeah, it's been enjoyable. I mean, obviously the black jerseys are a fan favorite, and they did a good job of kind of incorporating the blue and all that stuff with those, and so it feels like we're in good hands moving forward. They're trying to put a lot of thought into them and put on a new one every year. It feels like.
Yeah. So let me ask you this real quick, since we're talking about jerseys, and I know you don't have a ready call up on this, but the Packers wore those couple Sundays ago or whatever, wore the all green throwbacks to the 50s, an era they didn't hardly even wear those for very long, but it was a different shade of green, a little lighter green, and then they had basically a dark yellow or a mustard number and stripes and stuff. I kind of digged them when I saw them.
As soon as I saw them, I bought one. I have an Adams jersey, so I think they're cool, especially like with the Packers. I feel like when they did like the Color Rush games and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And the Packers just were all white, and it was just like, for once, it felt like we finally had a different jersey, other than the Acme jerseys are bad. Those.
Yeah, I'm done with those.
Those
done
are bad.
Those. Yeah.
I would be happy to not see those again. So I think it was good to try something new. And I think they look nice. They are obviously a different shade of green, and it's still pretty simple as far as an alternate jersey goes. But for the Packers, I'm happy with it.
I'm telling you, man, I think they bring back that look for another game, and I think maybe they go with their regular helmet, because I don't think the color of the helmet changed, but obviously there was no logo on it. I think you slap a logo on it, even a G without the white piping around it too, just to keep it all like that. I think they've got something for a regular season, just an alternate uniform to wear
for sure,
because they have to wear their dark stuff on the road a lot. So there'd be another option.
Yeah, definitely. And it's just nice to see kind of the Packers are kind of this, they're such a kind of traditional organization too. So it was just nice to see them kind of take a chance and put out a different shade.
They're the New York Yankees of the NFL.
Very safe.
Safe. You get what you get, and that's because you win championships like nobody else, over the course of history, not just in the Super Bowl era, which a lot of times people are so married to, they forget that, the NFL's been around since the 19 teens. And the Packers. All right. Last subject today, I think somehow in some way, right now the Brewers are in such a neutral zone, low point here, but we want to talk about them a little bit. And I think one of the first things to me that pops up, I see the Atlanta Braves win the World Series, and the last three teams that the Brewers have lost to in the first round of the playoffs have gone on to win the World Series.
Yeah.
The Nationals did it in 19, the Dodgers did it in 20, now the Braves do it in 21. I would like to say that the Brewers have to be done being that stepchild.
Yes,
but
100%.
I'm just throwing this out there. Like, I don't think it means a whole lot, but can you take anything at all away from that if you're looking at how these organizations did their thing? And I think, like with the Braves, man, their trade deadline deals were maybe historic, as it turned out.
They remade their entire outfield.
They did. They remade their entire outfield to play the final 2 months and 2 or 3 months, and look what they did and how impactful they were. I'm not saying the Brewers needed to go out and do
Right,
that.
right.
They have some other issues, obviously, but and they made trade deadline deals, and you don't know how they're all going to work out. But it is like, I don't know. Can you take anything out of that
I feel
at all?
like
Maybe not.
I feel like yes and no.
Yeah.
Like, yes, obviously it feels right. Like, it feels like, yes, you lost to the eventual champ. But I feel like the last time I felt good about that sentiment was me trying to convince myself that it was okay that the Bucks lost to the Raptors, right? It was like, okay, you lost to the champs.
Right.
But then you say, okay, that happens. And then it happens 3 times with the Brewers. And now, like, you're just sitting there. Like, it doesn't matter. You lost. Like, I don't care who you lost to. Personally, I feel like I was so I didn't care who won after the Brewers lost. Like, I still watched, but I wasn't invested in any kind of way because it just feels like that's no longer, especially now that we have a championship with the Bucks, that's no longer something I want to hang my hat on. Like, we were that close. We lost to the champs. Like, it's the same argument of, let's say, like the Raptors when they just lost to LeBron over and over and over. Well, you got to feel good. No, we have to change something. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, or the Rockets losing to, Steph and the Warriors. It doesn't matter. You're not winning. You lost.
And it doesn't
you can only hang your head on that for so long.
Right. And it doesn't take long to forget who the losing team was, right?
Right, exactly. It's, I don't know. I guess as a fan, I'm trying to, like, when you lose as a fan, you're trying to balance, like, your actual reality of how the season went and your anger for just losing. So it's just like I'm in the middle right now. I don't know how I feel about it. Well, it almost feels worse that you tell me that it's the last 3. You know what I mean? It's like
I just wanted to bring out a little more angst in you that the Aaron Rodgers stuff just wasn't enough for this week.
Right, exactly.
At a time. Yeah, I mean, it's the other period that they're entering right now too is there's this little window of time for if players are going to opt in or opt out of their player options and stuff like that, and Avi Garcia's in that mix, Jackie Bradley Jr.'s in that mix, just to name a few that are going to be really questionable at this point. And we just don't know what's going to happen, especially after the current deal between the owners and the players expires, which is going to be coming up here in less than a month, and they go into complete renegotiations on thing and how long that's going to take and stuff. So I don't know. I think that's going to be something that we're just going to have to experience as time goes, and we may get into some really low points that in a hot stove league type talk, we're not going to have anything to talk about because we're going to enter a period where probably we just don't know if these guys are really going to negotiate for real and really try to get something done. I keep hearing it's going to be a hard line. I keep hearing that there's no way spring training is going to start on time. Everything's going to get pushed back just simply because they can't agree on things. And it's more than a DH. This has everything to do with money first. Right.
And it's tough. Obviously we're dealing with all the COVID stuff and the leagues and players have lost money over the last 2 years. So it's going to be a tough negotiation because you would think that in some way they want to recoup or kind of protect themselves from future loss if this COVID thing continues on. So there's going to be a lot of talk about that too. I mean, it's going to be interesting. Just hope it doesn't last too long.
No, I know I'm with you there, but we'll be finding out here in due time. So, all right. So all eyes on the Packers and Jordan Love. Could be the beginning of something, or could be a quick end to something. We'll find out.
Yeah.
Packers and Chiefs on Sunday. The Bucks are home on Friday night against the Knicks, and the first 16 days of November they have one home game, and that's it. So this first half of this month is going to be an interesting challenge for a team that's kind of been devastated by the injury bug and some other things right now. So that's going to be something to watch for.
Yeah, I mean, we'll be watching, and we'll try to keep a level head if things go wrong. But hopefully guys get back soon and kind of right the ship. But ultimately, they're not 0-8. They're just in a little bit of a tough spot, and hopefully Giannis can kind of hold it down. And like I said earlier, get some of these guys rolling, and hopefully someone plays themselves into the future rotation, and we're set up.
All right. We episode 2 is officially done. CoshunCast, producer James Stewart. I'm Craig Coshun. Thanks for watching, listening, and we'll talk next week.